So you want to create your future, discover a path worth traveling down, find a career to get excited about. For decades, Career Tech has been training talented, skilled individuals, empowering them to step into a career that fuels not only their life, but the Oklahoma workforce. These individuals are the heartbeat of this state's economy. Individuals just like you. Create your future today at Oklahoma Career Tech.
It's time for the Skordle Pay Dirt Pick'em Show, presented by Maples, Nix, and Dieselhorst Attorneys at Law. We put it out there, the teams, the stats, the opinions, the picks, and most importantly, where to stop for dinner on the way to the game. Let's get to it. Here's your host, Andy Campbell.
Hello and welcome, football fans, to the Skordle Pay Dirt Pick'em Show, sponsored by Maples, Nix, and Dieselhorst Law Firm. It is time for Week 10 football as we conclude the regular season and get set for the playoffs starting next week. Mark Rogers, Tom Nelson here as always, and two guest pickers this evening. Our first guest picker is Jace Sternberger. Jace is a Kingfisher High School graduate and has been on the show many times. We're glad to have Jace back. Jace played college football at the University of Kansas and at Texas A&M before being drafted by the Green Bay Packers. Jace, welcome back to the show. Our second guest picker, Doug Nelson. We had Doug on a couple of weeks ago. Doug, a Pond Creek Hunter graduate, and has taught and coached at numerous schools in the state of Oklahoma, including Fairview, Tulsa Union, and now Lincoln Christian and Tulsa. Doug, thanks for coming back on. Good to have you.
Thanks.
We're going to discuss our 8 network games tonight, 2 of which are Skordle games of the week. Tom Nelson is calling Passion at Fairview. We'll be talking about that game here in just a few minutes. And then 4 of our best out-of-network games in the state this weekend. So let's go ahead and get started. And we are going to kick off the show with a couple of 8-man games. We'll start with 2 playoff teams in District B7 as Cherokee travels to Waukomis. I think this game is on Thursday evening. Waukomis has the better overall record, but both teams 3-1 in district play. This contest will likely decide who finishes second in the district, assuming Covington Douglas beats Olive on Thursday night also. Tom Nelson starts off.
I hate to admit this. Waukomis is about 10 miles south of my house, and they've really flown under my radar this year. They've put together a pretty good body of work. Lost big to O'Keene back in September, but then gave Cov Doug a scare, lost by a touchdown in October, and they've put away everybody else pretty easily. They've got a really solid team, a sophomore quarterback. His name's Wyatt Smith, a good running back, and Ethan Brueggemann, and then Malachi Givens, who plays fullback and linebacker. This is the Chiefs' first winning season since 2017. They were 3-7 a year ago, 0-10 back in 2021, so it's been a bit of a struggle. Now, Cherokee got 3 losses hung on them early during a tough non-district schedule, lost by 20 to Covington Douglas 3 weeks ago. I saw them back in 0 week against Timberlake. All that said, and this, I had to go back and change my pick because the news today out of Waukomis, Wyatt Smith, quarterback and cornerback starting, and their best player, he's not going to play. Had a concussion. He's going to be out. They're going to start Brady Helbert, he's a freshman. He'll be the quarterback on Friday, and that changed my pick. I was going to go Waukomis in this one, but with Waukomis missing their best player, I'm going to go with the other Chiefs. I'm going to go with Cherokee.
Mark, does that change your pick? With breaking news here from Tom.
I didn't know Wyatt Smith's status. I know he didn't play last week, but they did beat an outman Olive team 52-0. Brady Helberg was the quarterback that came in and played, and so they didn't miss much of a beat in that one. I'm going to still go with Waukomis. I think that that game against Covington Douglas was really good. These two teams, it's not like throughout history that one's had an advantage over the other. They've split the last 16 meetings down the middle at 8. Cherokee has won most of the more recent ones, though. But I still like I like Waukomis' side of this battle, the Chiefs.
Mark, taking the freshman quarterback. Jace Sternberger, let's go to you.
Yeah, after learning that information, I like Waukomis even more now. I think Cherokee is going to let up a little bit, anticipating that their quarterback won't be playing. And I think Waukomis will come together.
Doug Nelson.
Yeah, I noticed that they hadn't played since 2021, and the series is tied 8-8 with Cherokee winning the last 4. legendary coach Bob Kramer, when he retired from Valco, he actually did 3 more years at Cherokee. When I was researching Cherokee a little bit today, I knew that he had helped, but they listed him as the head coach. Unbelievable coach. He's in the top 10 all-time winningest coach list in Oklahoma. I like Wacomas. They're at home. And because of that, I did see this. Their head coach, Bryce Shambacker, if I'm saying that right, if he wins this game, he'll now, in his third year, get to 15-15. So I'm putting my bet on Wacomas.
I think Bryce Schombacher's he's been there about 15, 20 years. He won a state.
Is it longer than
won
that?
A couple state championships. Yeah.
Let me correct myself on that. Coach Rustin Donaldson is at Cherokee, Wacomas. And if he wins, he'll go 15-15.
There you go.
Thank you.
From Class B to Class C1 with a big matchup, district championship on the line on Friday. The Tyrone Bobcats are 7-1 overall, 6-0 in district play. Timberlake is undefeated and has dominated opponents all year long. Tom, let's go back to you.
Now, Timberlake is Timberlake. They've given up more than 8 points in a game just one time this year. They've just had to go the distance. One time they beat Buffalo 38-0. But these Tigers are playing with a purpose right now. Coach Severin's grandson, Thatcher, is in the hospital in Oklahoma City. He was diagnosed with leukemia. The whole area has come together to support the family. This little boy's a Tiger in more ways than one. And Tyrone is dang good, but Timberlake is playing in Brian Severin Stadium for the first time since Thatcher's diagnosis. And I'm afraid that Tyrone is in the wrong place at the wrong time. Timberlake is going to be Thatcher strong on Friday night.
Certainly be thinking and praying for Thatcher throughout this ordeal. Mark, let's go to you.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that on social media, and so it's good to see people that are coming together and saying prayers and doing things to try to help any way they can in that situation. Timberlake is this is a class to me with Timberlake, Ryan, Tipton, Timberlake, and Ryan, all really, really good teams. And Timberlake looking to close out a perfect season. I think Tyrone can win a game in the playoff or two, but I think Timberlake is going to win this week.
Jace.
Yep. Spending the little time I did in Medford, Oklahoma, I got to be around Timberlake, and I would never pick against them in November. So I'm going Timberlake.
Doug.
I believe he's been there 31 years, Tom, and that puts him at 241 wins versus 118 losses. That's like 67% of the time he's winning. Tyrone does have 2 state championships all the way back to 1960 and also 2020. But I'm like you, Timberlake is going to be too strong, and Tyrone is going to take a, 4-hour road trip down there and then back with an L.
All right, let's go to Class 2A. The Davis Wolves started out the year 0-3 after playing Pauls Valley, Sulphur, and Plainview. Since then, Davis won 5 in a row before a tough 22-15 loss at Holdenville last week. Community Christian needs either a win or a double loss to get into the playoffs. So this is a big home game for the Royals on Friday night. Mark Rogers, kick us off. Davis at Community Christian.
Davis lost a tough one last week at Holdenville against that really, really tough offense to defend, the old wing T. I was impressed when we had the Wolves earlier this season. I know Rance Digby had a fumble last week. He's kind of their workhorse running back for Davis. That Wolves jumped out to a lead in that game. And then Holdenville came back to win it. Got a really good defense. CCS 5-4. Has got some good young players on their team, but I'm going to go with Davis to win this game.
Tom.
Yeah, Davis, they just got to guard against the hangover after losing the district championship game last week by a touchdown to Holdenville. Community Christian's 4 losses are to 4 pretty good teams: Washington, Mount St. Mary, Beggs, and Holdenville. The district coaches picked them 5th coming off of a 3-8 season a year ago, and the Royals are going to be hoping that Beggs takes care of Dibble, so they don't have to worry about not playing next week because Davis is the real deal after starting off 0-3 with losses to Sulphur, Pauls Valley, and Plainview, all bigger schools that are really good this year. I think Davis bounces back on the road and wins this one pretty easily.
Jace.
Strictly riding with the public school, so I'm going with Davis. Again, tradition, November. You just got to stick to what you know.
Hey,
Nelson.
speaking of that, man, that
ahead, Mark.
win last week for Sulphur over Victory Christian had a little bit of a private school, public school um, ring to it there with the 77-8 win. So I didn't really see the details of that game, but I know that's kind of an issue. So it's going to be one of the great classes to watch down the stretch this year into the playoffs to see in 3A if Sulphur or potentially some of the other teams can unseat the dominance that we've had with Lincoln and Heritage Hall.
Yeah, you mentioned
Doug.
Sulphur, Plainview, and also Pauls Valley. They dropped those 3 games. I think Sulphur's going to be the state finalists on the other side. Heritage Hall obviously is on a collision course with us in the semifinals. Jace, I actually worked for Lincoln Christian, so sorry, man.
I'm sorry. No, it's all good. I was going to say.
I feel your pain at times. I was at a lot of public schools, Fairview included, and then Union for 19 years, and so I hear you. But yeah, Community Christian had 2 tough losses with Washington and Beggs. Beggs traditionally strong, and everybody knows the story on Washington. 10 state championships for Davis. I'm going to go with tradition beating the Royals and all the purple that's going to be there on Friday night. So I'm going with Davis.
We'll stay in Class 2A for our next pick'em game. Millwood looks to win yet another district title as the Falcons host the Perry Maroons on Friday. Millwood 8-1 overall and undefeated in district play. Perry had won 4 in a row before a 28-14 loss at Chisholm last week. Good season for the Longhorns over there in Chisholm. Tom, let's start with you. Perry at Millwood.
Well, I was surprised last week. I'd picked Perry to beat Chisholm, and they lost 28-14. Chisholm shut down Perry's ground game, held them to 41 yards rushing on 31 carries. They'd been averaging about 130 rushing yards a game. Now, Perry really, really needs this. Millwood has the district title locked up. This is from what I can tell. I'm horrible at this kind of stuff, all the tiebreakers and such. I think this is how it goes down. Millwood has the district title locked up. Chisholm is picking up a win sitting at home by forfeit over Crooked Oak. If Perry loses by more than 15 and OCS beats Mount St. Mary by more than 15, there'd be a 3-way tie, and OCS and Perry would be tied in district points. After that, who knows? Chisholm would be 3rd, and OCS and Perry would be tied for 4th in the district points. Who's going to the playoffs? Heck, I don't know, but I'm just saying it's going to be interesting because Millwood's going to beat Perry. That's what I think.
Mark.
All right, I looked at this scenario earlier today. I believe that it's that close that Perry, if they do lose by 15, they're going to be behind OCS by 1. They would lose the tiebreaker according to the OSSA rankings website. So if they lose by less than 14, then they would get in ahead of OCS. But if they do lose by 15 to Millwood, then Perry is going to be out of the playoffs. And I'm going to assume in that other game that we would have a 15-point win. So it's a tough one. I mean, Perry might be able to hang with Millwood, but the Falcons are so good at stopping the run. I think Millwood's going to win the game. I think that it's even going to be difficult for Perry to stay within the 15 that they need to advance into the playoffs. It's a good season for Perry this year. If they lose, they'd finish at 6-4. But they just found themselves in the middle of a really tough district in Class 2A, District 1.
Yep. Hey, Stumber.
Not taking anything away from Perry. I'm sure they have a great coaching staff, great team, great community, all that good stuff. But the young, rude person in me is like, it's not wrestling. I'm taking Millwood. I can never take Perry in something in football, respectfully. That's just from what I've experienced.
Fair enough. Doug, let's go to you.
Yeah, so Perry's got 6 wins, and that matches their 2021 total. And so they've had a nice year. We played at Millwood back in 2011 in the playoffs, and it was a rainy night, and that's a unique setting stadium, kind of on a hill there, and a lot of tradition at Millwood. Obviously, they played for 12 state championships, and they've won 7. Last one was in 2017. Too much athleticism and too much tradition. Millwood wins.
Let's go back to 2A6 for Beggs at Dibble. Beggs has won 3 in a row and gets into the playoffs with a win or Community Christian loss. Tom, correct me if I'm wrong on that. I'm terrible at interpreting that as well. But Dibble 3-3 in district play needs a big one to have a shot at getting into the playoffs. Beggs at Dibble. Mark.
This is I think if you can, always doesn't work this way, but if you compare scores, the last 2 weeks, Beggs has beaten Tishomingo and Colgate by a combined margin of 84 points. Dibble beat the same two in the last 2 weeks. They just swapped opponents by just 12 points. So this Beggs team's losses are very understandable. They were beaten by Holdenville, a team that I think is somewhat underrated. They were beaten by Davis in a game that we saw them play earlier this year. I really like their quarterback, Billy Ramsey. I was impressed with him when we saw him. Ryan Grayson also is a big-time athlete, got a good running back in Jason Athon. And I'm going with the Demons of Beggs here over the Demons of Dibble.
Tom.
Yeah, we talked about Davis. We talked about the Davis CCS game, and this is the other big game in that district. Beggs has rebounded nicely from last year's losing season. 7-2 with 4 district wins. They smoked the bottom of the district the last 3 weeks after back-to-back losses to Davis and Holdenville. On the other hand, there's Dibble. They escaped a trip to winless Tishomingo with a 6-point win 2 weeks ago, and then beat one win in the district, Colgate 20-14 last week, as Mark said. That does not inspire much confidence in me, and I'm going to go with Beggs in this one.
Chase.
I'm going to go with Beggs just because I played against them when I was in school. So I hope they're still doing good.
Yeah.
Doug.
Coach Tennyson does a great job. 7th year, 62-24. He's got an assistant on his staff, Jason Sport. He worked with me at Lincoln Christian, then went to Bartlesville as a head coach. Did a great job up there. Tough place to win in 6A football for sure at Bartlesville. Beggs has outscored the 6 district opponents 226 to Dibble's 147. For that reason, I'm going with the Golden Demons of Beggs.
Good call. New coach there, though. Coach Blizzard took over before
there you go.
This season. Is doing a nice job. Young kid that played his high school football there at Beggs.
Thank you.
In our business and at our firm, it's all about preparation, preparation, preparation. We are advocates for our client. We speak for them. So as a part of that advocacy, it involves hiring the best experts. It's doing the legal research. It's doing the medical research. That is advocacy behind the scenes. It's not just the bells and whistles in front of the jury.
Back to Class B for our next pick'em game. Caddo and Dewar both undefeated in B4. The winner of this matchup in Dewar will take home a district title. Mark, who takes the top spot on Friday?
What a game. I mean, this is a great quarterback matchup. Peyton Kilhofer at Dewar and Cale Wigington at Caddo. Wigington threw for 315 yards and 6 touchdowns last week for the Bruins. So I think you got to go with Dewar here. But it could be a really, really good game. That's a tough district with Keota in it also. But I like the Dragons. But I think Caddo is going to be really close. And I bet we got, I don't know, the point total in this game may be in the triple digits, over and under. So I like a high scoring affair with Dewar winning.
Tom.
Yeah, these two teams were picked to be here in the preseason. They've not disappointed. Both teams have the gaudy record, the 1-loss each. Both have outclassed their competition in most of their games. Dewar's gone the distance in just 2 games, Caddo in 3. Dewar has played at a different level for a few years. They're 70-5 over the past 6 years. And, we've seen them. I've seen them a couple of times. They've been dominant. That said, I had to see one result to help me make this pick. In 8-man football, good teams can overwhelm other good teams. It doesn't happen very much, but it happened to Caddo back in late September. They hosted Sealing, got run-ruled 46-0. Dewar's won 13 of 15 in the series. The last 6 in a row have ended early. I'm not picking against Coach Bean and the Dragons in this one. I'll take Dewar.
Chase.
That's all I needed to hear. Thank you, Tom. I'm Dewar too. 13 out of 15. I like my chances on that.
Yeah, Tom, I said that. I was thinking that too. Caddo had a good loss against Sealing. They get 45, or in this case, 46. They did play. Both of them played Keota, if I'm saying that right, 55-8 for Dewar, and then Caddo only won by 1, 33-32. So that stood out to me. Dewar leads the series, as you said, 13-2. It's at Dewar. Dewar's won 6 in a row in this series. I'm taking Dewar.
And now our first Skordle game of the week. This is a school network game, which will be called by Michael Swisher, Sean Skamahorn, Russell Stitt, Kenny Lunsford, and Joaquin Wallace. Great crew over there at KingfisherSports.tv. The Kingfisher Yellow Jackets have won 4 of their last 5 to have a shot of getting into the playoffs in 3A1. The Plainview Indians are 8-1 overall, with its only loss coming to Heritage Hall in overtime back in mid-October. Kingfisher hosts this matchup on Friday night. Mark, give us a preview.
Man, this district, there's no way. It's really hard to figure out. There's some scenarios, I think, that a Plainview win really helps Pauls Valley in this one because they beat Kingfisher earlier in the season. But these games have all been high scoring and crazy for the most part and really close. North Rock Creek might be the team that's on the outside looking in, but it depends on this game really more than anything with Kingfisher's shot to get in. I know Jet Birdwell has been playing good for them. 20 touchdowns and 3 picks this year for Kingfisher. He stepped in and done a really, really good job at quarterback. I think the Yellow Jackets are the hotter team. I'm going to go with Kingfisher.
Tom.
I think this one's going to be worth the ticket. Both these teams have found themselves in multiple high-scoring shootouts. Kingfisher's played in 3 of them, as has Plainview. 2 of Plainview's wins coming the last 2 weeks, or 2 of those shootouts coming the last couple of weeks. Kingfisher has really been a surprise. 4-7 a year ago. They were picked by the coaches to finish 6th in this district. They started off 0-2 and were 1-3 after that 3-point loss to Pauls Valley. But that loss opened some eyes. If you remember, we talked about it on the show. A little surprising they hung with Pauls Valley. And Kingfisher has really done well since then. 4-1 since then. And they find themselves in a position to get a home playoff game. Jet Birdwell, like Mark said, almost 2,000 yards passing, the good touchdown to interception ratio. He's got a really good stable of receivers that include 3 with around 500 yards receiving or more. But Plainview's battle tested. Their only loss was in overtime to Heritage Hall. Shepard Sizemore is going to go play at the Air Force Academy. He's a stud safety who's going to challenge Birdwell all night. There's going to be a good team in this district that won't make the playoffs, and I'm afraid it could be Kingfisher because I think that Plainview is going to get their 9th win.
Chase.
Mark, you know, I've always thought you're one of the smartest in the room. Just wanted to say that. I've always thought that about you. And also, this was my first. I feel old because Jet Birdwell was like 5 years old when I was a Kingfisher, so that's kind of weird to hear him how well he's doing. But yeah, I think Coach Riff has done a great job with the program, considering the stuff that has happened in the past, and I feel like there's kind of that football vibe. There's life back down in Kingfisher. And I think we're hot right now, and I've kind of said it, I think, already a couple times on this show, but it's November. Kingfisher, I think tradition is gonna. I think I like Kingfisher, surprisingly.
All right, 2 for the Yellow Jackets. Doug Nelson, let's go to you.
Okay, the big one that stands out is the Heritage Hall loss in overtime. I think that's was a huge a game for Plainview. I know Kingfisher's hot. I know the tradition with the Roof family and coaching in Oklahoma, but I'm going to take Plainview on the road with the big win.
And our second game of the week, this one's going to be broadcasted by Tom and Adam in Fairview on Friday night. District A1 will be won by Hooker as long as the Bulldogs can get a win at Crescent on Friday. Fairview and Caston are battling on Friday for second in that district. Both teams 5-1 in district play, have been very impressive all year other than the respective matchups against that really good Hooker team. Tom, I know you're calling the game, no pick from you, so just give us a preview.
Well, we're going to have this one on the Skordle Game of the Week presented by Brahms. So got to get the corporate sponsor in there. And everybody in the district is looking up at Hooker, undefeated, playing a 3-win Crescent team this week. So the spotlight's going to shine on the battle for second place in a first-round home game next week. Fairview has bounced back from their long winning streak, getting snapped out in Hooker 3 weeks ago. A couple of big wins over Hinton and Sayer. But this isn't the same team that rolled through Class A the past couple of years. Defensively, they've given up some numbers, given up an average of 22 points a game. Hooker ran over them to the tune of 361 rushing yards, averaging 9 yards a carry. I was surprised to see that. Hooker also made them look pretty one-dimensional offensively. And when Jax Bernard had a hard time throwing into and with a 40-mile-an-hour wind, their ground game didn't pick up the slack. Cashion is a much improved team, but they aren't Hooker, and I don't think the wind's going to be blowing a gale on Friday night. The Wildcats have won their last 3 after losing to Hooker, and they've put the last 2 the last 2 losing seasons in their rearview mirror. This team is still pretty young. Their best days are ahead of them. They've got a challenge this week, but whatever happens, they're going to end up playing a second or third place team next week in the first round of the playoffs. And I say, watch out for Coach Shack of the Wildcats. No pick for me on this one. It's going to be a challenge going into Eubanks Field in Fairview on Jax Bernard Senior Night, and we'll see if Cashion's up to that challenge.
Maybe no 40-mile-per-hour winds, but I did see there's a good chance of a lot of rain on Friday evening, so it'll be interesting to see how that may change the game.
You know what's crazy about that? I had not checked the forecast yet. The rainiest game that I have ever called since I've been in Oklahoma, Cashion at Fairview about 10 years ago. So you're telling me it's going to rain again? I mean, it rained like 3 inches during the game. Got that to look forward to.
You also have
it was real grass back then. They have turf now, so it rained better.
It was a mud fest, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Playoff.
No, it wasn't a playoff game. It was in the regular season. It was a district game, but I can't remember. It was probably 10 years ago, I'm thinking. Time flies when you're having fun. I don't know.
Tom, you also have Mark Rogers bars to look forward to in Fairview on Friday night per sources. Mark?
I can't wait to see some of those Mark Rogers bars, hopefully in the playoffs. Yeah, Fairview defensively, they winning the state championship the last 2 years has been an incredible run, and they've lost a lot of good players, even though their best player the last 3 years still on the roster at quarterback in Jax Bernard. Adam was telling us that he's been offered by Emporia, where my good friend Garen Higgins is the coach, and also Northwestern Oklahoma State. Emporia lost last week to Fort Hays, but they've had a really good season so far, and they're really good year in and year out. I almost feel like that Jax is being underappreciated because of his size, a little small, but he's got great arm strength. And I think I think he needs a shot at a little bit bigger level, as I think he can succeed. I'm going, when the Mark Rogers bars are out, it's serious. I'm going with the Yellow Jackets over the Wildcats.
You know what's interesting about that, Mark? You talk about him being looked at by Emporia State. I'm a Fort Hays grad, and I'm from Kansas. I'm very familiar with the MIAA. I tell you what, Coach Higgins has done a really good job of pulling small school Oklahoma kids up to Emporia and having success. The Cochrans, the Harmon kid played up there right now. He's the backup quarterback right now. But that's one thing they kind of found. Their little Emporia got to find players somewhere, and they've done a good job of pulling players out of small schools in Oklahoma.
No doubt. Let's go Cashion at Fairview. Jay Sternberg.
Yeah, speaking of Coach Higgins real quick, he was the first coach to offer me Division II out of all the other schools. Everyone else was last. So I actually, at first, that was my first offer. I was excited to go to Emporia. Love Coach Shack and what he's doing at Cashion, but a little source told me, my father, that if Bernard was playing anywhere in the metro, that's all everybody would be talking about and how talented he is. And I kind of have a soft spot for, kids who are underlooked. So senior night, I don't care the weather. I'm going to take Fairview.
Doug Nelson.
Yeah, we actually have 3 Lincoln kids playing at Emporia right now. So here's kind of a fun fact. Cashion and Fairview, I got a little history with Cashion. Coach Welsh was my high school football coach. I actually kicked a field goal mark in 1984 to beat Cashion at Cashion 9-6 in a thriller. And
Wow.
I was the only 6'5", 240-pound kicker in 8-man football. But I was pretty good. I was pretty good
Get
kicker.
the kicking shoe on. They have to take you off the field so you get the kicking shoe on, and then you Mark Mosley it straight ahead.
No, we took the shoestring and tied it up. You know how they used to tie them straight up, so you kick straight on, and that probably is illegal nowadays. But yeah, we put some. I don't know. They were probably steel-toed boots. I don't know what I was wearing, but yeah. So then we beat Cashion the next round in the playoffs, or the next year in 1985, on our way to win the state championship, which was Coach Welsh's first state championship. And then you fast forward to 1992. I was on the staff with him at Fairview. And then, of course, he won it in 99 there at Fairview. So With all of those things, I've got to lean towards the Yellow Jackets.
I think Jace was the only three-time Wheat Capital Tournament Player of the Year to play pro football too. I think, if I remember right.
Oh, I'm sure.
I've been hanging up
You were the
above my
three-time
bed.
Wheat Capital Tournament Player of the Year 3 times.
You won it 3 times, didn't you?
Unfortunately, I can't take credit for that. That was my middle brother. I only have 2.
Oh,
Oh.
okay. You had 2.
He had 3.
I thought you had 3 and he had 2. I was wrong on that.
I knew
No.
Jason and I had plenty in common. I played in 2 Wheat Capital tournaments, and I got a start against Newkirk my sophomore year, and we got snowed out, or I'd have played in 3, but we didn't win any. So I wasn't even all tournament. Probably didn't even make the radio broadcast.
Well, let me amend it then. He's the only 2-time Wheat Capital Player of the Year to play the tournament to play professional football. So there you go.
That's the first time Tom's made a mistake on the show. Finally, you fact-checked yourself.
Oh, man.
All right, those are our 8 Skordle games. You can watch all those games for free on the Skordle app, Skordle.tv, or the individual schools' websites that we talked about earlier. We're going to quickly discuss 4 of the best non-Skordle matchups in the state of Oklahoma this week. These games not available to watch on Skordle, but will be great matchups if they're available on the radio or other TV sites. Let's start with Poto at Broken Bow. Mark Rogers, we'll go to you.
This one should be a good game, another wild district, but the stud sophomore quarterback at Broken Bow, Grayson Howell, hurt his ankle in the game against McLean last week, and the McLean just got after Broken Bow. Broken Bow had been on a great run since losing their opener to McAllister, and really found something in that quarterback. And I think he's going to be another guy that we talk about that's playing outside the metro area that really is a heck of a player. So I don't know if he'll play this week. Chance that he might be back, but I'm going to go with Poto in this one, and a tough end to the season for Broken Bow, who had a really good year, but the injury situation might be more for them too much for them to overcome.
Tom.
Yeah, these are the kind of district train wrecks that I love. You got 4 teams in the mix for 2 spots. 2 teams are going to make it. 2 won't. It's a must win if you don't want to be squirming all night Friday night. Broken Bow started off 6-1, but they suffered those road losses to Ada and McLean by a total of 51 points the last couple of weeks. Poto has also lost their last 2 to Sallisaw in overtime and Hilldale. They're both kind of limping to the finish line, and Mark talked about the injury situation. They play every year. Poto has won 5 of the last 6, including 50-12 was the final score a year ago. Broken Bow is a good story. They were 3-7 last year. They've improved to 6-3 so far, but I'm going to take Poto in this.
Chase.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm almost positive Poto. I think it was still when I was in high school. They played Clinton in the state championship, and their quarterback was also named Jace, which is very rare to me. I always remember Jace's, and so for that alone reason, I'm just taking Poto.
Fair enough. Doug, let's go to you. Poto at Broken Bow.
Yeah, Broken Bow had a big win over Idabel, who we happened to play for the district championship Friday night. And Idabel's got 2 D1 kids, the Lopez kid that's going to Oklahoma State, and then also the Larry kid going to Utah State. So that's going to be huge for us on Friday night. But that game stood out to me. But now that you guys are talking about all the injuries, I'm sorry, I got to go Poto as well.
Hey, Doug, talk to us about that Lincoln Christian Idabel game real quick. Where is that game on Friday night, I assume?
Yeah, so it's Friday night at Lincoln Christian, and of course you can watch that on YouTube on LCS Tulsa. And myself, Whit Carter, Russ Claybrook, Kyle Ellig will be on the call. We have a lot of fun with our live streams, and had a ton of views this year, as we have in the past. But the dogs are rolling. They've won 23 straight. 43 straight district ball games. We're on a 23-game win streak, and so it's been a nice run, and look forward to keeping it going. Again, Heritage Hall is probably a collision course for us, and then looking at some of these other teams on the other side, Sulphur really stands out. But that's going to be a big one on Friday night, and then next year, of course, we get to return the visit. That's a 4-hour road trip down to Idabel.
Oh. You got to go to Fat Tabs. You have to get there early. Games go on Thursday.
Thinking about doing that, Mark. Actually, maybe get a little sweet Airbnb down in Broken Bow, and just kind of chill for a day or so and maybe hit the
There you
lake.
go.
But
That's the plan right there. That's exactly what you do.
that's what we do. We do have the series lead 4-0 against Idabel. And they had to come to our place 2 years in a row in the playoffs, and that's rough. 8-hour round trip for a first round loss. But it's been a nice run for us, and just look forward to keeping it going.
Brahms is bringing the heat. Introducing Brahms new spicy chicken sandwiches. Flavor this good just can't be beat. Brahms crispy, tender, spicy chicken delivers just enough kick to ramp up our original recipe. Get it regular or club style with crispy bacon and American cheese. Add on Brahms sauce for that extra burst of heat, and you have spicy chicken sandwich perfection, because nothing is better than Brahms.
Let's go to Sand Springs at Sapulpa. Mark.
Easton Webb, one of the best juniors in the state at quarterback. He threw for 440 yards last week, 4 touchdowns. This is one of the state's oldest rivalries. They started playing in 1916. There's not much land that separates these two teams. And I don't think that they've missed maybe but 1 year. And so there's a massive streak going in this series. Sand Springs is, to me, the wild card just outside the top 3 in Class 6A Division II, which is Stillwater, Choctaw, and Muskogee. I think they're going to beat Sapulpa, and we'll see if they can make up some ground against those other 3 teams that have stood out in this class.
Tom.
Yeah, I didn't spend much time on this when they both lost to Muskogee the last 2 weeks. Sand Springs lost by 16 a couple of weeks ago. Last week, Muskogee beat Sapulpa by 50. I didn't dive any deeper on this pick. I'm going Sand Springs.
Hey, Mark and Tom, any thoughts on your pick record last week? Mark kind of redeemed himself after a poor performance 2 weeks ago.
I was happy that I went 9-2, then realized that was like good for third place. So I wasn't as impressed with myself after that.
Yeah, we have to get it turned around after a couple of very subpar weeks. So I hopefully can keep this going, this little run here.
I don't want to brag, but I had a 10-2 piece myself 2 weeks ago.
All right, very good. Yeah.
Well, Doug, that's why you're back on the show. We needed some actual experts to be on the panel instead of just kind of pretenders there for a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Well, the way it's looking, I may go 2-10 on this one. So,
Sand Springs at Sapulpa. Jay Sternberg.
Surprisingly, I don't have a lot to say about this game. I'm gonna go with Sand Springs though. Yeah, just Sand Springs. That's all I got.
Doug.
I weigh 97. You're right, Tom. There's not a lot of real estate in between it. And these two towns do not like each other much. Paige Wadley, I do know, is their new head girls coach. She came from Rejoice Christian. Her son plays for Sand Springs. He's been hurt. Aiden is his name, and we're hoping that he gets better. But yeah, this is a big one. Bobby Klink is the head coach at Sand Springs, and he'll bring that tough mentality into Sapulpa and come out with the win. Sand Springs.
All right, 2 more games to pick. Muskogee at PC North. Mark Rogers.
This is Muskogee. PC North's had a good year. The Roughers have really had challenges early in the season for some good teams from Arkansas, and they're on a mission to repeat. We talked about Jamarian Ficklin a bunch, and I like him a lot. Putnam North's going to have their hands full against Muskogee.
Tom.
Yeah, Muskogee hasn't had much trouble with the Oklahoma schools in their schedule. They've run roughshod over the district. Their 2 closest games this year, like Mark just said, to Rogers and Bentonville West back in September. They won those games in shootouts by 5 points and 1 point. Rogers checking up on them. They're 6-4 winning season. Bentonville West just 3-6 right now. But PC North was hoping that this would be a Week 10 battle of undefeated district teams. They couldn't close the deal against Sand Springs last week. First matchup ever between these two. I'm going to go with Muskogee in this one.
Jace.
Yep. Being an administrator's coach's kid, so living all through Oklahoma, lived in Fort Gibson for a little bit to start. So I'm going with the town next door in Muskogee.
Doug.
Yeah, Muskogee's the real deal. It's going to be a lot of green and white. Not enough juice in the tank for North to hang with on Muskogee.
All right, our last pick'em game, Wynnewood at Walters. Mark Rogers.
I had Coach Osteen on the radio last week when we were down at Seth Wadley Ford in Pauls Valley, and he told me that they've got over 50 players out for football in Wynnewood. I mean, that's absurd. And so in his first year coming over from Ada, he was able to get to the hallways and get a bunch of kids out that haven't previously been out for football. And they're playing better now than they were at the beginning of the season. So it's a tough district that these teams are in. Walters has been really good all season long. I'm going to go with Wynnewood based on those things that Coach Osteen told me, that we've got some good young players too on that team. I think they're going to be good for a while. There's got to be a reason more than maybe just numbers on a paycheck to leave Ada to go to Wynnewood. That's probably like the equivalent of Lincoln Riley leaving OU to go to Tulsa, as opposed from leaving OU to go to USC. So I'm going with Wynnewood in this one.
Hey, Mark, I believe that that Cash and Fairview game will match up with Wynnewood Walters. Cashin could go to Walters or Fairview could go to Walters, something like that. So that'd be a really interesting first round matchup that we can talk about next week. Tom, let's go to you. Wynnewood at Walters.
Long drive.
Yeah.
It's a great matchup for second place in A1 District 2. Both teams have one district loss, each lost to Christian Heritage. I really didn't know where to go with this one until I was watching the severe weather coverage on one of the Oklahoma City stations that will remain nameless. The guy drove by Wynnewood High School during a tornado warning with a tornado spotted on the ground on the edge of town. And he said that the Wynnewood students were walking around campus like it was just another day. So, hey, if they're not scared of tornadoes in Wynnewood, what's a Blue Devil going to do to them? I'm going to take Wynnewood in this one.
Jace.
Yeah, I like that. I like I like that mentality. I'm gonna go with Wynnewood too. That's what I was gonna take anyway, but I like the tornado, and I feel like that's pretty Oklahoma.
That's the best reason for a pick that we've had tonight. That's pretty impressive.
That is impressive. Christian Heritage, they both lost to them. The other 5 district games, Wynnewood averages 34 a game, while Walters is averaging 39. Wynnewood has a lot of tradition. And I think this series is 3-2 Wynnewood, but I'm going to go with Walters in the home game.
All right, guys. Any games that we didn't discuss or any interesting story-wise that we haven't talked about so far on the show?
I'm just thinking about how a weather guy who shall remain nameless was not real happy that the Wynnewood kids were not in the hallways with their heads between their legs. But
I get all my weather information from Adam Dieselhorst, so he's the only weatherman I listen to.
Mark, who was the great running back from Wynnewood that went on to play at OU?
James Allen was an incredible recruit. Everybody wanted him, so I think that was OU got him, and he went on to play in the NFL, and was a good player there. We got we did a lot of these games that are Skordle games really have a lot of playoff implications. So I think those, for the most part, are ones that they're ones to pay attention to this week. So there will be some other good games out there, but we covered a lot of those.
You mentioned Wynnewood running backs. I always think of Daniel Knowles. Gosh, that was just hit me. That's been almost 25 years ago, 25 years ago. I think that was maybe 99 or 2000. Such a tragic story, but Wynnewood really produced a lot of great players there, and Daniel Knowles was certainly a great player, had a bright future ahead of him, other than that really tragic story that happened with Daniel.
Yeah, passed away on the field or after being injured on the field. So that was Bruce Hendrickson was the coach there at the time at Wynnewood, and certainly did have what you would think to be a really, really successful career ahead of him.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for joining us on the Skordle Paydirt Pick'em show. Week 10 football. I know everybody's looking forward to getting this regular season concluded and the playoffs starting next week. So we'll be back next week with either a playoff pick'em show or maybe we'll just give our gold ball winners, our dark horses. But either way, we're going to have a show next week. We appreciate Jay Sternberger and Doug Nelson joining us tonight. Thank you guys for coming back on the show. Really always love having you guys on with your insight. Be sure to tune into Skordle.tv to watch all these matchups. You can watch Tom Nelson and Adam Dieselhorst on Friday in Fairview. We'll be back next week. We'll see you then.